Welcome back to Regular Guys Outdoors. I'm Chris. Back in December, while pronghorn hunting, I ran into a guy named Brian, and we hatched a plan to do a backcountry archery elk hunt this year. Well, that is this hunt. I'd like to say that Brian went with me hunting, but the fact of the matter is Brian's taken me hunting, and he doesn't even have a tag, which is really nice of him. So before anybody even asks, I'm not telling where we went. When I showed up at Brian's, we threw everything into his truck, and I'm glad we did because we needed his 35-inch tires and his rock sliders on one or two occasions. My truck definitely would have been stuck out there. These are some pretty tame parts of the road because the other parts are just too bumpy to bother showing. On the way in, we saw a moose, and I thought that was pretty darn neat.
Yeah.
So now we're hiking in the trail, and eventually we break off the beaten path and head up over a ridge. So we got there in time to do a little glassing before it got dark, but we didn't see anything. The next morning's opening day and we're up glassing. Here's our campsite, little morning business. No luck this morning. We glassed up 2 bears, a mule deer doe, and her 2 fawns. Now we're going to leave camp and do some hunting. But first, a water resupply. We didn't find much sign while we were out, but we got into this wallow/water hole, and it had the best sign of the day, so we decided to sit on it. But we had a few hours left, so we took a break. The wind was great, but all we saw were some grouse. Sunday morning, August 26th. We're still having no luck glassing up anything. Brian spotted some elk this morning, and our only issue is they're out there. It's a long way out and a long way up. Decision is made. We packed up. We're gonna go head after them. They're way out there, on the move. And here's another grouse. Sometimes they can really startle you. So after going about 4 miles in, we set up camp right underneath where the elk were. We topped off our water supply, and now it's time to head up after them. Currently being put on hold by a thunderstorm. Certainly wasn't in the forecast. So we're hunkered up here. Colorado ranks pretty high in the amount of lightning strikes that hit ground state-wise throughout the country, so we're going to hole up for a while and maybe get back at it after this. We're right at the top of the hill. Eventually the storm passes and we get to the top. When we get up to the top, we hear a bugle. So we start probing into the wood line a little bit, and I see an elk. So we decide to skirt low and try to go around to the edge of the elk and keeping an eye out in case it's the herd. And then we're not seeing it, all of a sudden, there it is in plain sight, staring at us.
Right there, she's right there. She's looking at us.
Now it's standing there, and there's a nice gap between two trees right where its vitals are. However, that gap is covered with brush, so I can't take a shot. We're talking less than 30 yards here. Eventually the elk moves to the left.
It's a bull. It's a bull. It's a legal bull.
And then it bolted, and that was the end of that game. So we hunted around a little more up there and we didn't see anything else. So we dropped straight off the mountain right down into our camp. The next morning, I'm up early. Well, it's the coldest morning by a good bit. It's a little after 5:30. I'm hiking up the trail, gonna go up and try to get in position to where they were yesterday when we saw them. My GoPro must have got turned on this morning or in the middle of the night because it was in my pants pocket. It's dead. It's probably full too. I got my Tacticam. It's legal light right now, and I'm almost to the spot where I'm gonna go straight up the hill for about 100 yards. And I just about tripped over this survey marker in the middle of nowhere. I didn't see or hear anything up there, so we packed up and we're heading back to the truck. We're gonna relocate to a different part of the unit. Well, this place turned into a parking lot. There's a welcome sight. You need something like this to get back here. We get to the new spot and we're hunting and hiking. Well, right now it's Monday night. We've relocated. We've dropped way down into a valley right there. But that valley's been running a lot of cattle. So I don't know if the elk are gonna mingle well with the cattle that have been in there. We didn't see any cattle, but to get back to the truck tonight, we gotta go there. So here we go, another long empty walk back. Here's a welcome sight.
Truck hunting. It's not for the faint of heart.
The next morning we drive out to another trailhead and we're hiking uphill. Here we go, back at it, Tuesday morning. We're not seeing hardly any sign or anything, and we're walking over a lot of deadfall, and Brian decides to start cold calling, and we set up, and I hear a twig snap, and which is not uncommon with the breeze and the squirrels that are out there, but I decide to go ahead and knock an arrow anyway, and that's when it all breaks loose.
Meh.
And just like that, it was over as quick as it started. Do elk always stop behind something? Because none of them seem to want to give me a clean shot. So we just kept moving, calling, and hunting. Eventually we decide we're just going to drop straight off the mountain, and it turns out to be a very rough trip. Very steep, and somehow it seems to get steeper and steeper, and more deadfall on the way down. That's a descent I'd like to not repeat, but we probably will at some point. Eventually we get back to the truck and we head home. Now that was a great 4-night, 100-hour hunt in the backcountry. We covered a lot of ground, but we had a couple of great encounters too. So obviously I didn't get to fill my either sex archery tag, so that means there'll be another video forthcoming. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and give us a subscribe right here. Thanks for watching.